Hello and welcome to TALRadio. At TAL, we connect those who are willing to give to those who are in need. My lovely listeners and my beautiful audience, you're watching and listening to a wonderful series, Self-Coaching. And as usual, whenever I say this word, you know who's going to be the guest. Let's welcome Andrew Tallents. Andrew, welcome to TALRadio.
Hi, Sandy. Great to be here again.
Thank you so much, and lovely bright sunshine in your backdrop. So happy to see that. And today we will be talking about something that we really need in a life, that is delegation. So power of delegation and effective delegation techniques. So let me start by asking you, especially because you work with leaders across the globe. So why do many leaders struggle with delegation, even when they know that it's necessary?
This is really lovely because it pulls on some of the previous episodes that we've been talking about. And there are three main reasons why everybody can struggle with delegation, even though we know it's the right thing to do. So the first thing, which we'll all relate to listening to this, is our inability to trust other people. So if I have a job that I need to do, which I know you can do, but actually you've never done it before, you've got qualifications to do it, but I've never seen you do it before, I've got to let go of that and trust that you're going to do it to the same standard as me, to the right time as me, and in the right way, in that sense. So sometimes if we don't trust somebody, that can get in the way of delegation. It's just easier to do ourselves. So that's the first thing, and it happens to everybody that's listening to this. The second thing ties into our saboteurs. We've talked about our saboteurs in the past, and remember, one of these saboteurs was a saboteur called the stickler. And what the stickler does in our mind, so it's not a real person, but it's in our mind, it says that whatever we do in life has to be such a high standard so other people can benefit from it. It's got to be high quality. And therefore, if I've got to delegate something like that, my immediate view is, Sandy, I know you're not going to do it to the standard that I would do it, so I'm going to find it very difficult to let you do this, because you might do a good job, but it's not going to be a great job, and therefore I hold on to it again because I know I'm going to do the best possible job in terms of the quality. That's why some people struggle to delegate around that one. And then the third one, reason that a lot of people struggle to delegate is because of control. And they worry that if they delegate and it goes out of their control in terms of when it needs to be delivered, they're going to lose sight of it, it's not going to be done, and therefore they can't be like that. They must have control of the end thing. So again, it's far easier for me to do that myself as opposed to delegate. Now, what we'll link into later is the only way to have an antidote to that is to really recognize what it is that we can do in a day, because we only have so many things, and then start to build on being less stickler, trusting more, and actually just letting go, which we'll talk about later.
All right. I think trusting, especially, that is I think the whole world needs to trust each other at the moment, at least.
I agree.
So moving on, how can you tell the difference between being responsible and doing everything yourself?
It comes back to, and so many people are well-meaning out there, and I'm included, where somebody asks me to do something, I think, yes, I can do that. I put a time scale on it. Oh, they want it on Monday. Yes, I can do that. And then stuff happens between now and Monday that was never, ever able for me to get that done. So there's a few things that are happening. So I might take responsibility for doing something that you asked me to do or that I need to do. And with goodwill, I tend to put my own time frame on it. And what I'm not good at doing is managing expectations of somebody else in terms of the fact that I can't do it anymore. I'd rather not tell them, because I don't want to let them down. So that's the first thing. I have responsibility, but I don't want to let the other person down. So I still assume I'm going to do it and have this belief I can do it. If I took some time out and sat back and reflected on all the things I need to do today, I would soon work out that I won't be able to get this done by Monday. In which case I can tell that person, say, I'm sorry, I can't do it by Monday. Is Tuesday okay? But I say nothing instead. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that if I think I can get things done, I don't want to necessarily involve somebody else who can necessarily take me away from that and dilute it. And therefore, again, I want to take responsibility for it. So it's about this holding on and wanting I guess, the recognition and the responsibility without letting go. It's linking into letting go. It links a little bit in terms of the essentialism we've spoken about in one of our previous episodes. We have to take responsibility for certain actions, but we don't need to do them all. We can get other people to help us and ask us for help, either in doing the task itself or agreeing a different timeline for that task that we've agreed to do.
Andrew, you just mentioned about, the kind of thought process that leaders generally go through while delegating tasks. One is about control, the trust, and it could be clarity also that, I could do this thing better than the other person. And so what do you really feel? What is I would say, the topper here out of all these three factors?
Really interesting. It does vary on different people, but I think the major one is control. I think when I see I've got 12 things in front of me, and I know that all 12 of them being done to the right level will give me the result that I want. If I let go of one of them to somebody else, suddenly I don't feel in control anymore. And that's a real problem for many leaders. So many leaders give the impression that they are in control. They are calm, they're methodical. We know they're not in control, by the way. They think they're in control. And I think that's the biggest thing. And when you then link that into trust as well, those two tend to be the key factors. The stickler is a big one. But yeah, they're the two main ones.
And that's probably one of the deadliest cocktail, I would say, in any organization.
It is.
So moving on, we do know that, once somebody becomes a leader, for sure they've been a high performer all their lives. So somehow, the identity of a leader as a high performer, how does it literally affect their ability to delegate tasks?
This is a journey I was talking to a client with last week. And again, I'll just explain this simply so people understand it. A lot of leaders that are very successful have this viewpoint of I. So, and it's not selfish, but for me to be successful, I need to focus on the things I can do. So it's I. Then when we get to a certain stage in life where there are so many things to do and we're leading lots of people and there's lots of complexity, we need to be able to move to this term of we. So it's me and you that can do this. And therefore, I have the ability to delegate. I don't always do it, by the way, but I have the ability to delegate because it's now we. We can be successful. Then when you actually look at the wider organization, as we mature as leaders and we become much more wise and sage-like, we move from we to us in the sense that we're all in this together. And I think we've talked about this, Sandy, in the past, that in the east of the world, where you live, there's much more of a collective us in terms of we're all in this together, as they're opposed to the United States, for example, or where I am in the UK. So leaders generally have to learn where they are on that journey. And particularly from the West, it's I where they start from. And why they find it difficult to delegate is because they don't understand the value of we and that success. And that's what drives it a lot. So for me, it's a level of maturity. It's about me recognizing that for me, there's a great book by Marshall Goldsmith called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And it's a brilliant book to say about this moving I to we. And we need to recognize that's the only way we can get all this stuff done. Because you think about, a president or prime minister of anywhere in the world, they can't possibly even look at all the things that come across their desk each day. They do have to delegate if they're going to do a really good job. So a lot of this is about letting go. And that's what most leaders really struggle with over time.
Letting go.
Yeah.
So moving on, I'm not going to let you go at the moment. We really have a long way to go.
You do?
So, I really wanted to understand, how can we in general as such in our life also can literally recognize, tasks and consider, okay, this is we need to eliminate, this we need to automate, and this we need to delegate. And now there's something that is left that is like do it yourself, DIY type. So how do you organize the task in your life?
Yeah, well, AI is really helping with this. So we'll come to how that can help because we never had that ability to help, particularly with the automate piece. So we mentioned a few times today, and for those listeners that want to go back and listen to the episode around the whole concept of essentialism. So if people remember, the concept of essentialism it's by Greg McKeown. You can go and read the book. It's a lovely book. For me to be successful in life, both personally and professionally, there are only so many things that I need to spend time doing, both in relationships and tasks, that only I can do. Okay? So for me to be successful in life as a father, then only I can be in relationship with my children, because if I don't do that and I don't see them, then I can't be successful as a father. I can't delegate that role to somebody else. So I need to understand what are the 8 to 10 things for me to be successful in life that only I can do, that nobody else can do, and I can't delegate those things. That's the first list. Now, the problem is, so many leaders out there don't even work out that list in the first place. So they don't know which 8 things it is that they've got to do. And therefore, they're doing everything and not even some of those things. Once I understand what the essential list looks like, and those 8 things, I can then look at all the list of things I've got to do. And I say, well, hold on, this one over here is not essential for me to do. And there is somebody else that can do it. So I then go and look in my resources, in my team or in my organization, who else would either like to do this, can do this, used to do this and might want to do it again, because I'm not going to do it anymore and I'm going to give it to someone else. So we look for those support and resources around us. We do that when we know the task can't be automated. It's got to go to a human being to do something with. But that's how we let go, because it's not an essentialist task. With the automation, with AI now, there's some great things out there that can help us with ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini, and other models are available.
So many of them.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Where we actually share with it and think with it, I've got this task to do. It starts here, it ends there. These are things that I'm doing in between. Please work with me to work out where I can automate this and help me to build a standard operating procedure so that somebody else can actually press the button and manage it. So that's been the big change in the last 2 or 3 years that people can start to look at. So we start with what it is we're essential to do. We've got to do those things and find the most efficient way of doing it. We can automate some of those things. What is it we shouldn't be doing, and let somebody else do that, who probably is far better than we are and should be doing it. And then what are the things we can start to reduce and automate because it doesn't need our manual input. All through this, we've got to be mindful in all of those areas that we're only going to let go of the things that we can let go of if we recognize that many of those things we still enjoy doing, we still are valued for doing, we get rewarded for doing, we get patted on the back for doing, we feel good for doing, but actually we shouldn't be doing them because it's not essential for us to do. And yet we still do it because it makes us feel good. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
As you mentioned, letting go is a very, very difficult task.
Yeah.
So you just want to cling on to something that's not even essential in your life.
Absolutely.
So moving on, I really wanted to understand about leaders. Now you've spoken about, in journal as such about, us. Now let's move back to leaders, talking about them. How clear the leaders should be while communicating their expectations, outcomes, or deadline to the team members?
Well, this is really important with delegation. So if I'm a leader who has trouble letting go of control and letting go of standards and letting go of, this trust element, if you like, the way I can remedy that and have an antidote for it is to make sure that every single person that I delegate a job to has real clarity on a number of things. The first thing is about when it needs to be done by. So I'm very clear. I don't say to you, Sandy, excuse me, I need you to do this thing for me. It's this. Is that okay? And you say, yeah, sure, I'll do it. But I've not said when. I've not said what time. I've not said in what format. So I can manage the expectation to say, Sandy, I need this doing by this date, by this time. Is that okay? And then you would either say yes or no to me. So I'm managing expectations around the timing of it. Second thing then the leader needs to do is to let go of the high standards, to say, this is the standard of a document that I've done in the past that's doing the same process. And that's how I've done it. And I recognize you have some different skill sets, and therefore I don't need it to get to that kind of quality or standard. I need it to get to here, and show a different example. In terms of it gets there, I'm very happy that it's to a level of quality that I can work with going forward. So can you do that? Yes, I can. Or no, I can't. So it's really clear again. True. The third thing, if you were to take this on from me in terms of this task, are there any things that you're doing right now that you would need to not do to be able to do this task? Yes or no? No, I can take that on board. Or actually, there's 2 other things that I might not need to do this week. I could let them go. And then the manager or the leader says, well, okay, let go of those things because this is more important. The fourth thing is, if you're going to do this, what kind of help or support do you have around you to help you do it and get them to understand that? And then the final thing, which is the most important thing, is if we have agreed all these things in the delegation of the task, I say to the person that's been delegated to the leader, if for whatever reason you are feeling that you are not able to do this job and task to the required standard with the level of support you have around you on the deadline that we've talked about, how do you want to let me know that that's not going to be the case so that we know we have to have a plan B? But it's me putting it to them they're going to let me know, rather than worrying, getting close to the deadline, say, I'm never going to do this, or working the weekend. So we need to be really clear. We need to make it as easy as possible for the person that's being delegated to achieve the task. Whereas so many leaders just don't do any of that. They just say, can you do it by next week? And this one says, yeah. And they've got no clear expectation about what that means at all.
That's very true. In fact, my next conversation, I really wanted to know how the conversation would go, when the leader is delegating a task and how clear they should be, what kind of conversation it would really sound. But you already answered that question. Thank you so much for that. So moving on, there's something called micromanaging, and everybody hates it.
Yes.
We all hate it in our lives also, I would say. But, when we talk about leaders who delegate tasks, so how can they really, delegate outcomes beautifully instead of, it looking like that they are trying to micromanage the process?
Comes back to what we said earlier. So many leaders, if they just shifted this position from so I need to achieve X outcome by next week, and I'm going to delegate the task to you so we can do it. That feels as though it's just being put upon us. And therefore, we're either going to engage because we like the individual, or we're not going to engage because we don't have any respect for the individual, and we might not do the job that they're being asked to do. So if, again, we take the perspective of we need to achieve this outcome by next week because the business needs this outcome for the customer, what I can do in terms of that task is this, in terms of managing the customer expectation and understanding what's required. And what I need you to do is to manage this element of the task that I can't do, so that both of us together can actually come up with the outcome. When that's explained in that way to us, as someone that's been delegated to, we have much more engagement and buy-in because we feel we're in it together, and the other person is still contributing, the leader is still contributing something, and therefore I'm more likely to engage and share when I'm struggling with that. So that's the best way that leaders can delegate effectively, knowing the outcome needs to be X and they want to be able to delegate. It's the we again.
All right. Andrew, in previous episode, we talked about a lot about, I would say, accountability, promoting accountability. So when we speak about accountability in terms of delegation, so what role does it really play here?
It's really funny you should ask that question, because I've just been speaking to a client now who is leading a team, and there is a lack of accountability in this team, and therefore the delegation doesn't work effectively. So I'll tell you about it in confidence. You don't know who the client is. But essentially, what's happened is that the team has lost sight of why they're there. So the remedy to this problem that you present is, as a leader, if I can keep reminding the team that I lead about who ultimately we are in service of, i.e. the customer, the stakeholder, the citizen, whoever it is, the reason we're doing what we're doing and getting paid for it, by the way, in terms of what we do, if we reconnect to that, and therefore we only have so much resource between the team and myself to get these things done in service of that particular customer, that stakeholder, it starts to re-engage the team about the importance of why delegation is important, particularly when the leader says, I'm your leader, we're serving these stakeholders, and most of my job is to provide the strategic direction and the vision and communicate that to you so you understand where we're going, because I'm the only one that can do that. I'm the leader. And if I'm actually doing a lot of the doing, I don't have time to sit and think about these things. So part of my role is to make your life easier, to remove the obstacles as I'm looking ahead about where we're going, explaining that. But together we need to be in service of the actual end user. And that usually helps to engage the team to remember the why. And so many teams lose the reason of why because of the problems that the leaders don't reconnect them with it.
True, very, very true. So now talking about leaders, you're an amazing leader yourself. So I really want to understand from your day-to-day life as well, when you delegate a task to somebody, and I certainly know your team as well, but imagine now there's a mistake that's been committed. Yeah. How do you respond to it?
That's really difficult. I'll tell you how I probably respond and how I should respond.
Okay.
So because I'm a human being as well and make mistakes. If I'm really busy, the way I would normally respond if there was a mistake made by someone I delegated to was for me to feel frustrated, maybe to feel angry, but I would keep that within. I wouldn't share that anger necessarily. And I'd look to immediately blame the other person. Okay, so that's how if I'm being completely honest about me being busy and not having much space, that's my first reaction, and most people relate to that out there. However, if I then take a step back and then feel and understand what is it that I've done in me communicating with the person that I've delegated to that has led to this mistake happening, I probably will work out quite quickly that I either wasn't clear in my communication, I didn't set the time deadline properly, I didn't agree how they were going to tell me if they were off the rails, all the things we talked about before. I didn't do that. And therefore, what I should do, and what I do when I have space and not too busy, is to say, that's happened, we can't do anything about it now, let's get together now or later to learn from what's happened and make sure it doesn't happen again. But it's not about blaming, it's about we both share the responsibility for that, and understanding how we put a process in next time so it doesn't happen again. That's what the real me would do if I had lots of space and time. But it doesn't happen all the time.
But I'm sure your team must be loving the second you, basically.
Yes,
taking
absolutely.
a pause and then thinking about it.
Yeah.
That was so lovely. Thank you so much for that insight, I would say. So moving on, I really wanted to understand, when we empower ourselves and we start delegating tasks, do you feel that it literally increases our capacity to, take other tasks as such?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, yes, it does, but we shouldn't. So what I love about that question is any leader out there and any person that's got a life where they're busy, if we can delegate as many tasks as possible, what it does is actually create space for us. And we stop doing, we actually have more of an opportunity for being in relationships, being in relationship with ourselves in terms of being that kind of alone with our thoughts and the thinking about what that means for us. It may be that we're actually in relationship with our friends, in relationship with our colleagues, but we're in space and time in relationship, just being. We're not doing anymore. So when people delegate, it creates the opportunity to be more spacious. Now, it might be when we're in that moment of being more spacious, we recognize, because of the reflection, there are a few things we need to do. But it's not because we're just moving things into doing, we're actually doing it because we thought that we need to do them. So it's really interesting. Lots of leaders initially remove a lot of tasks they don't need to do and then fill it with more tasks. And that's not the point, because it just means we're busy again and we're not leading. So I really love the question you raised, because if anything, it should feel more spacious. I remember working with a leader once and I said, how would you describe your job? And they said, well, 75% of my time in a week is spent communicating with people in my business. Because if I don't do that, they're not clear about what it is I expect of them. And then they spent 25% on doing things. And it just shows how much effort needs to go into being in a relationship rather than actually doing tasks, if you're a leader.
True. Lovely. Thank you so much, for all that lovely insight. But before I let you go, as I said, we have a long way to go. So, well, just kidding on that note, I think I'm going to wrap up this segment. But before I let you go, there's one very important thing that I would really like to know, and I'm sure our listeners would be really keen on understanding that. For example, if somebody fully embraces delegation at this moment, how would their leadership behavior and their life as such, what kind of changes would it bring in their life?
What I've seen in most people that practice this really well is immediately you just feel the shoulders just relax a bit more, because they feel less weight in life. Because we both know, and everyone that's listening to this knows, if for whatever reason the burden of doing things comes on us a lot, there's nothing better than actually just letting go of those things just to feel that bit lighter. So the way it changes us is we actually change our whole persona, we feel lighter, we actually move differently, we actually engage differently with people just because we feel that lightness. And I think if we're actually swamped by all the things we have to do, then we do feel that heaviness and it's more difficult for us to enjoy life.
Lovely. Thank you so much. So on that wonderful note, I hope all the people will start delegating certain tasks in their life. The essentials, you better keep them to yourself. But the others, yes, please. So let's see how many people take that path. And on that wonderful note, I'm going to wrap up this lovely segment of the series called Self-Coaching. Andrew, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
All right. And keep on listening to TALRadio.